Welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime Review, Part 5. This one I'm talking about the 5th season of the show, and this. But first, there's about 3 different story arcs. Basically, this one takes place between the second and the first, second arc of the season. First up, it's Grand Championship, which takes up the first half. I initially thought this was an entire season, and looked up, it's actually part of season 5. And, yeah, that's quite weird, though, that the first half of season 5 is basically Grand Championship. It starts with episode 185, and it does not end until 98. It's a pretty short arc. It's roughly 14 episodes. Yeah, it's 14 episodes, which, like, wow, that's actually quite interesting. Yeah. Basically, you have in this season you start with a two-parters, a standalone, another two-parter. A lot of it's basically two-parters until you get to the last arc of the season. There's not many duels in this season at all. It just picks up like right after the events of the previous season. It's like, okay, they have no money to get home, but then Kaiba comes along. Basically, Kaiba got back the stocks his company. Apparently, also his stock had dropped, so they had to do something to get the stock back up. So he came up with a brilliant idea: running their tournament, and it's out of their new amusement park, which they had mentioned back in the end of season 3, Kaiba Land. Yep, they actually they reference this. Yeah, so this whole 14-part story takes place in this one theme park. And first, basically, in this giant building, which has the first time since the previous season, they actually featured the oversized duel arena, which they didn't feature these that much in the show after the season 1. I mean, after all, this is actually only the second time since season 1 since season 2 they've actually featured the oversized duel arenas, because largely these duel arenas have been absent because the duel disc, obviously. Yugi does assist in this particular duel. All in with the virus is actually one of 3 times he duels with this whole arc, and a lot of the time it's just Joey dueling. He duels like 2 or 3 times. His last duel he loses, and the whole thing is like apparently this is rival family of the Kaibas. What's the name of this? Let's see. It is. Let's see. Okay, the Von Schroeders, yes. Yeah, the whole thing with the Von Schroeders, apparently they didn't like the Kaiba family that much, and it's made up of 3 brothers instead of 2. Their youngest brother, now, one of the brothers is not participating, only 2 of the brothers participate in this thing. And also, Kaiba duels once in this entire arc, and he duels against Siegfried, and beats him because he disqualifies him for under a false name. Now, the younger brother does face Yuki at the end of the season and win, and loses to him. Basically, Yuki had to put his title of the King of Games on the line for this tournament. And a lot of the time when you see Yuki throughout a lot of this tournament, he just basically just a background player. He's there. He does offer some advice. Does give a good amount of dialogue. He only duels like maybe a couple times. First time is in this episode called let's see, what is it? I think it's called Child's Play. Yeah, it's this standalone episode featuring Vivian Wong, who decides to fight Yugi in a restaurant. Yeah, it is so funny. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh yeah, it's actually in Brawl in Small Town. Basically, Vivian kidnaps Salamoto, and Yugi has to fight Vivian in a restaurant on top of tables. Yeah, they fight on top of these round tables, and it's probably the most unusual way I've seen people fight a duel. And Yugi goes to the Pharaoh, and it's a pretty interesting little duel. Though when she was last seen, she was fighting Rebecca over Yugi's love, which I'm like, wow, Yugi, you have like two women fighting over, well, three women fighting if you include Taya, and I guess from a fan standpoint, basically it's like, dang, you are one lucky son of a gun to have three beautiful ladies fight over you. The one of whom basically is a little bit shorter than he is. Vivian, I am not like kind of the same thing with Rebecca. Like, what's the attraction because he's a great duelist, so you want to be with him. I mean, come on, everyone knows Taya wants to be with him, but Taya's not forced out with it. Great little duel. Yugi gets his grandfather back. It would have been interesting though if she forced Yugi to duel her if she kidnapped Taya. That would have been more interesting. But yeah, and pretty much, this was a pretty interesting little side. You can kind of think of this little 14-parter, these 14 episodes, as sort of a side arc, basically. Just a quick little thing, and that's that. The rest of the season, from episode 199 to 219, is the Millennium arc. Before I get to it, I want to talk about this, which is chronologically set between Grand Championship and Millennium Dawn of the Duel, and it's Capsule Monsters, which, when this initially aired, it was a 12-parter. This DVD is basically just edited together of all those episodes, and it's, well, Yugi. It's basically the Yugi gang going out to rescue Yugi's grandfather, one of like several times in this. Apparently, it's at this other world, and they have to use these capsule launchers in order to fight, and they get little things about this big, and they fire them off, and they get various monsters. For Yugi, a lot of the monsters he gets are basically monsters he regularly uses, like Celtic Guardian. He even gets Karibo, and even Dark Magician, which is nice. And pretty much, yeah, like everybody gets one. Like Taya, Yugi, Tristan, all four of them get one. And the guy who helps him initially, he turns out he's the main villain, who was also implied to be Sakamoto's research partner, and turns out basically he really is. It's just a guy who's a rival of his. Interesting little side thing. Fun, nonetheless. But not much else to say. But a lot of the time, if you look at Yugi's belt, yeah, that's where you have to keep those little capsule launchers. It's kind of like this particular. Now, this particular game did happen in the manga. So they kind of loosely took the game and basically turned it into this Capsule Monsters arc. Yeah, but they did explain the rules of this thing at the start of it. Shoot. Yeah, they did explain at the start of it. But yeah, quick little thing. But that was actually really good. Grand Championship, interesting little diversion. That would probably help basically boost the stock prices of Comic Corp stock. Then came Dawn of the Duel. Really interesting set of episodes. This particular arc took up, how many episodes is it? Let's see. This one took up exactly 21 episodes. Yep, 21 episodes. And this is all basically in the past. It explains several of the backstory. Basically, it's kind of like the backstory of Duel Monsters, basically, of, well, a Tim going to the past, reliving his memories. And probably one of the awesomest moments this whole season is early on with Bakura, basically, who remembers everything. Well, even Bakura, anyways. And he raids his father. He raids the previous pharaoh's tomb, takes some of his jewels, and takes the guy's coffin, brings it to the palace, and then basically he has it where he challenges like a duel. And it's like ancient duelist, like this little thing that pops out, and it's basically kind of the same principle. He's like ancient duel disc. He's pointing to this. He's like, oh, that's the I don't know what they call it in the show, but it's a similar principle. And they use it to summon whatever monsters they have on tablets. And then after a little while, Yugi, a Tem, basically, I can call him a Tem at this point. He just gets up, like, I've had enough. I'm stepping in. He's like, I call upon the Egyptian gods. And he summons Avalis the Tormentor. And everybody in the whole room is shocked the fact he can do this. Now, basically, part of his court, you're not going to believe this. Sakamoto, there's a version of him, Seto Kaiba, There's a version of Rebecca's, what looks like Rebecca's grandfather who has Millennium Eye for some reason. There's a version of a Shizu, a guy who looks almost exactly like the Dark Magician, who later becomes the Dark Magician later on, and Atem's best friend bears a striking resemblance to a Dark Magician girl. And it's actually pointed out by Yuki that she looks exactly like Dark Magician girl. And there's a good reason for that. She's actually the apprentice to the actual person who becomes Dark Magician. That's the reason why. And for some reason, aside from Atem, the only people who actually can see Yuki and his friends is this girl who's a magician. And initially, how Yuki and the gang gets to the past is they get to the past via a genie. And yeah, that's how initially it gets to the past. Well, I think that's how they get to the past. Let's see, how do they get to the past? Yeah, they meet with Merrick. Yeah, Merrick, Shizu, and Odeon do come back. And Kaiba gets involved in the mix when he somehow is given Pegasus Millennium Eye when Bakura briefly duels him on top of Kaiba Corp Tower. Yeah. I don't want to spoil too much of this particular arc, but it is just pure excitement. And not a lot of dueling per se this season. This particular arc, I mean, there's some duels, basically between Yugi and the evil Bakura. And then it's revealed that apparently this whole thing was with this giant table, and like apparently Atem fell asleep. I'm like, okay, yeah, this can, even the manga basically just comes completely out of nowhere. Yeah, he does eventually it's revealed that the Ibukuro is actually Zekros. I think that's his name. Because he is fighting with the Egyptian gods. Let's see. What is his name? What is his name? Not Deerbound. Zork? Nergravhaves. I think that's how you pronounce the creature's name. Yeah, Zork. Yeah, it turns out it's actually really him. But despite the multi-part of this particular arc, it's a really good serialized arc, following the characters, following throughout Egypt. And apparently when they time travel, apparently no one can see them. Heck, even Kaiba falls in the past. And for some reason, he doesn't talk to his past self. Which, okay, that does not make any sense. But one of the cool things about this particular season is basically of Kaiba's connection to the Blue Eyes White Dragon, why he's so obsessed with it. Because the guy who was reincarnation of, there was this girl who had white hair and blue eyes, who basically was the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now, they did hint at this way back in Season 2 of Priest Seto holding up this body of this woman, and look at this tablet of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, and this girl becomes the Blue Eyes White Dragon. So, you get a lot of revelations, and this was probably by far one of the most exciting arcs of the entire series. Even a lot of the characters don't really do much of anything, but it's fun to see and Atem gets a chance to use all of the Egyptian gods versus Obelisk, and he used Slifer, and he used Ra. But yeah, he gets a chance to do all three of them. But yeah, the Zork gets defeated again in the past. And Tam hands off his crown to Seto, who basically in the past, Seto is actually his cousin. Believe it or not, he just hands off to him, has him become the new pharaoh, and it turns out the reason why he did this because this is where his memory ends. It's implied that he died. So, and it's also kind of stated that he's only been pharaoh for at least for a few days. So, this is a really short reign. Wow. Because usually, like, I've done a little research on some real life pharaohs, and some of them last for at least a couple. Like I think the shortest they go is maybe like a year or two, but some of them last for like decades. But a few days, wow, that's short. I get the fact some other royalties basically this has happened with them, like England. This has happened. I think France has happened as well, but never Egypt. Never. This is probably something new for the show, but yeah. And then of course to close out the season and the series, we have the final duel. which takes up the last 5 episodes of the series. Everybody returns to the present, and Yugi and Tim have their big final duel, which takes up 4 episodes, and it's a great duel. The whole point of the duel is basically see how much Yugi has grown and see how he can defeat Tim, and Tim goes to the afterlife. And of course, they previously got all 7 Millennium Items put in this giant Millennium Stone, and that's what started this whole thing. And basically, and then the tomb collapsed, and the Millennium Items all fell this down this giant hole. Of course, the puzzle basically went back to being pieces again for some reason. Let's see. Everybody gets trapped there. Of course, Duke somehow got there. Yeah, that's never explained. Yeah, how Duke just flew there. He just flew there for this final duel. I don't think he was actually part of this arc. No. Not that I can think of, no. Let's see. Yeah. Also, prior to the actual final duel, Yugi had got up all the Millennium Items at this point. Somehow he got the Millennium Scale and Millennium Key. Yeah, this is never explained. Also, it also is revealed with Shadi, the reason why he's a ghost, because Bakura raided his tomb. That's the reason why he's a ghost. They do reveal a little more of him in the darkness in the last Yu-Gi-Oh film that came out, which was Dark Side Dimensions. That's where they reveal it. But yeah. But this 5th season was, well, the first arc, really good. Good way to start off the season. Something a little bit small scale. Not really much affect anything. Having the Millennium World, the Dawn of the Duel, which basically, that's how TV promoted Dawn of the Duel. Great arc. Final Duel was a great way to end the series. And overall, really good. Overall, final thoughts on the main show itself. It was a great show, but I know we're not done yet because I still got 3 movies to talk about next part. That we'll talk about in part 6. But there was good episodes throughout this whole entire series. Unlike GX and 5Ds, this series was fully dubbed. Despite the controversial moves that 4Kids made, it was animation-wise, the series was great. Unlike, let's say, some other anime would start from the manga first, this one started basically based upon the cards themselves. Pokemon started the same way, where it's based upon games, not manga, though there was manga afterwards. But the main series itself was actually adaptation of 2 main. There's actually 3 different parts of the Yu-Gi-Oh manga. There is Yu-Gi-Oh, which basically takes out like 7 books. That was adapted to the undubbed seasons 0, which I haven't watched yet. There is Duelist, Yu-Gi-Oh Duelist, which basically was adapted into, well, loose material, but was basically made into the first 3 seasons of the show. Millennium World was basically the second half of season 5. Yeah, but overall, this was a great show. But like I said, not done yet. Still got 3 movies to talk about next part. But overall, great series. Despite some missteps with season 4, but my guess is the reason why they did season 5 because they just kind of wanted to end the show because of probably because of the ratings wasn't very good for the season, and they probably had enough just to do 1 more season for the show. But yeah, it still has some awesome moments. Well, season 5 was probably a step up from season 4 probably for a lot of fans because some people just rather forget, or at least not bother to talk about season 4 at all. But season 4 also did sort of bring back characters. But the one thing the 4Kids show I did not like about the finale was the fact they cut the black. In the sub version of this, there's actually stuff going on during the credits. Like you get a chance to see my team up with Vivian. Let's see. Mako Tsunami taking on Asperoba, basically planning taking them on. Weevil and Rex fighting. And so it's not like more stuff happening. But for some reason, they decided not to show this. For some reason, I have no idea why 4Kids did this for. But this was great. It was kind of like some anime does do this for their final episode, where they do in fact show the credits. But if I were 4Kids, I would have edited it where instead of basically showing that show the montage before the credits, though in the sub they show it during the credits. They did it also for one of the 4Kids. They did it for the third Pokemon movie, where a scene that happened during the credits they did just before the credits when they brought back a particular character. It was Pokemon Movie 3. But yeah, good series. I haven't watched the sub version of the series, but I've heard it's a little bit better. I kind of wish that I kind of wish Filmation would do an uncut version series. I'm not suggesting taking away the dub actors that 4Kids brought in. No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting just fix just keep all the dub, keep all everybody's voice exactly the same. Just restore the stuff the 4Kids cut out. That's one thing I would suggest doing. Just bring that stuff back. I know Filmation did do a dub of Zextal. I haven't finished watching Zextal to get opinion on it yet. But yeah. Alright. So that's it for part 5. Stay tuned for part 6 when I talk about the 3 films released for the series. And that will be it for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime Review series. But I want to see you all in my next episode. Bye.